Alright, since we're a small group too, feel free to interrupt me at any point in time. We don't have to wait for questions or anything like that. Just put up a hand or holler out. I'm used to teaching high schoolers, so feel free to just blurt. Alright. But I'm going to be talking about Fern Creek High School and interdisciplinary hands-on education, and what I've been able to do down there and kind of my path towards that. So I'm not originally from Louisville, Kentucky. I'm originally from Philadelphia. I went to school in Virginia, and being from a family of educators, I kind of denied wanting to teach the entire time through my education. I didn't realize I wanted to be a teacher until I was doing community service at the end of my senior year of college, and then I needed to look around for any place that would hire me without any education credentials at all. So I found a program called Teach Kentucky, and the day after I graduated, I moved to Louisville with only visiting once for one day. The day after that, I started my master's at UofL, and then that fall was trial by fire in the classroom out in Shelby County. I absolutely loved it. It was great. Every single day I would have students up to my room for lunch. I would bake a loaf of bread every night, the night before, bring a block of cheese and a bunch of fruit, and these kids would come up. I think there were two reasons why they came up. One, I like to think because I'm incredibly charismatic and they wanted to spend more time with me. Two, is a lot of them didn't have food. A lot of them were coming in, and instead of eating what the lunch ladies were making, they would rather have something that I was bringing in, that they actually knew was real food. This kind of expanded because I would start to talk to them about food, one of my passions, growing up on a farm and always having a garden, and living with cows and chickens and pigs and all of these different things. It was part of me. And a lot of these kids had that in their past, but they hadn't made that connection. A lot of them would go home, they'd sit in front of video games, they wouldn't go outside, they wouldn't even interact with people face to face. Usually it would be over a chat or a text message or something like that. So I realized these kids, one, needed to connect with food, needed to connect with their own identity, needed to connect with their own heritage, and also get out of the house, get out of inside, and go outside and work on it. I was supposed to teach a study hall that year, and I said, can I design a class instead and teach that? And I said, well, let's see if it's all right with your contract. And I said, yeah, it's fine, don't worry about it. I'm just going to teach an extra class. And it was a 6th and 7th grade looping class all about food. And we had lit circles, and we cooked, we had cooking competitions, we got a grant, we went out, we built a garden, and at the end of that year I petitioned to expand that. I got shot down by the powers that be, and luckily at that point in time they decided to look at Fern Creek High School and label it a perpetually low achieving school, fire half the staff, and throw a bunch of money at it. I was poached from Shelby County, and the principal there, Dr. Houston Barber, said, hey, do something cool. We need to change the culture. The culture here at the school is totally demoralized after they pretty much say that your school is terrible and they take away half your faculty. So do something amazing. He kind of knew what my angle was. The way I got hired there is I invited him over for breakfast at my Germantown house, which I had torn up all the yards and made it into an urban farm. Raised chickens and ducks and rabbits. I've had turkeys there. I've had a fish pond, which was totally unsuccessful. But I've raised all sorts of veggies there, and during the summer it's beautiful. The way I decide what I have for dinner is I walk up my front steps and look on either side of the pathway and just yank it and then go into my kitchen. It's fantastic. But I had him over for breakfast and he said, can you make my school look like that? And over the past 3 years, more or less, we've done that. With an open field and running a bunch of grants, we were able to put up a greenhouse. We have over 40 raised beds. We have over 100 half bourbon barrels. We have perennialized fruit crops that are at the entrance of every single door to the school. And within 3 years, we're going to have hundreds of pounds of fruit coming out of a fruit orchard that one of my students wrote a grant for. But this was a long path, and this is kind of what I'm going to hit. We're going to talk a little bit about our cooking club, about our food lit class, and specifically today, it's appropriate, we're going to talk about our experience with farmers markets and using them as a classroom, and also food perspectives. So, cooking club is probably one of the favorite things that I'm able to do. And one of my students came up to me and said, Franzen, You know, they've taken away all vocational studies. Apparently, since we're a school where our test scores suck, we don't get to learn home ec or carpentry or anything like this. We need to learn math and science and reading and writing. So all vocational things are out the window, which is great because when a person leaves school, they don't need to eat anymore, so they don't need to know how to cook, which is fantastic. So I started a cooking club, and all of a sudden, these kids that, when they're in the classroom, they had their heads down, they were failing, they weren't doing well, all of a sudden you get a kid that's like that. And he's loving school, and he's loving being with other people. And I mean, it was something as simple as, you know what, we're making dough, we're making a sauce from scratch, we're going to take this cheese, you get to make this individualized by putting on your toppings, then we're going to bake them, and then we're going to eat them. And you know what, you get to enjoy other people's food, and you also get to build a community. Here, we're taking some of the local ingredients of a watermelon. This was during the fall of last year. We were doing watermelon salads, and you have a lot of these students that are working together. With a lot of the students that I have at Fern Creek, we have issues with obesity and diabetes. We are about 60 to 70% free and reduced lunch. So a lot of the times when these guys go home, it's not always the best food, but if there is food around, and a lot of the students that stay around for cooking club, the reason they stay is because there isn't much food at home.
So this is after school?
This is after school. And I'll kind of go into some of the stuff that we have during the school day, but this is one of the easiest ways to kind of put this in, because in order to do a straight cooking class in school, I would have to petition the board, I'd have to go through all of these different runs, because it doesn't directly link to core content, the Common Core that's coming. So watermelon salad, and those are actually greens that we got from the school garden. So we're trying to make this connection between place and work and agriculture and all of those pieces.
How often do you guys meet?
We meet once a week.
Oh, really?
And then we also have different special events. So we do a catering event, which you'll be able to see. I'll go back to some of those. So each year the alumni, during homecoming, they hire us to cater their events. So it's about 150 people that come in. So we break into the school cafeteria, and we do cooking like they haven't seen in those cafeterias for the past 15 years. So we make biscuits from scratch, we make gravies from scratch, we go through, and we use 70% local ingredients this year. So we work with grasshoppers and farmers markets, and it's all about building those relationships, getting those kids to look at, all right, how do you run a catering job? How do you do this? How do you cook? And then when you get out there, you'll see the kids kind of wandering around. How do you talk to these people? How do you meet them? Because at one point in time, they were you. They were students at Fern Creek, even though now they're a bunch of gray heads. They're great. My apologies.
Oh, no, it's okay.
So, as we go back, the cooking club has been incredibly dynamic. We had an Iron Chef Cookoff. We have one of these every single year. The cool thing this year is this Iron Chef Cookoff within the cooking club tied into the farm to school cooking competition. So my students were the only team from Jefferson County that is participating. None of the other high schools put together a team, which being the largest school district in the state is kind of disappointing. But because we're the only one from the county, we go directly to the final bracket. Which is incredibly terrifying for me as a coach, because my team has never really competed in a formal competition. So we're going straight from our kitchen at Fern Creek all the way to the stage at the state fair. So hopefully it'll turn out, and our kale and sausage soup turns out amazingly well. But this is a picture from 3 years ago, and some of the successes, how do you know if you did a good job? This student and this student right here are at Sullivan right now. They're killing it. They're doing a great job. Obviously, it had a massive impact on them. And it's really amazing to see these kids as they go on their trajectories and kind of see how we are able to kind of bend their path or start a passion in some different way. Pulling kids from all walks of life. His name was actually 6'9". He was our big basketball player. He plays up at Illinois now. But, all right, he was this amazing basketball player, but his other passion was cooking. So he would come in and he would tower above everybody else. But it's like two guys that would never interact, all of a sudden they're making a chocolate cake together. All right? And this guy being exposed to beets and looking at the color and getting excited about it. We had a traditional Thanksgiving meal where we smoked a turkey during the day. We all made different sides and we all sat down at a big table and had a family Thanksgiving. A lot of these guys don't have that. So it's not just food, it's also trying to hit all different aspects of the student. You just kind of see the enthusiasm, these guys getting together, working together, the mass production.
About how many kids have you had participate each year on average, and then total?
Cooking Club usually averages about 40 different kids throughout the year.
Okay.
Environmental Club, which deals with the cultivation, probably has about 20 to 25. Within our food lit class, we took a core content English class and made all of the information food related. So we start off the first trimester looking at semantics and rhetoric. So we look at what is good food, is sugar bad, and we kind of take those questions and just blow them up. And actually some of our students were invited to speak at the Watson Conference of Rhetoric at UofL this last year, which is an international conference, and we were able to present on what we were working on, and the kids just absolutely nailed it. So it's not just expertise in food, not just expertise in building community, but it's actually expertise in the things they're supposed to be learning. So this is what came from our school garden for our class meal. We started the first thing off as a class meal to build community, and we continue on there. You can see some of our kids cooking, pulling up food, flipping pancakes. And this was actually a competition. It was to design a restaurant, and it was looking at it as multifaceted as you could. So there was a floor plan, a marketing plan, and then you needed to pitch it. These three guys had an entirely tough time at school, and they got up and had a restaurant called BB&C. To get the real name for it, you can talk to me afterwards. But they had this amazing pitch. They ended up winning, and the prize was dinner out with their two teachers. So we took them to BBC, and we got to meet the chef, and we got to go behind and look at the kitchen. And when we called the parents of these students, the parents initially were like, okay, what did he do? Why is he in trouble? And we said, no, he did a great job. He won a competition. We're going to take him out for dinner. And there was just silence on the other end. But it was really amazing to take these guys out because it was a new experience for them. And as a teacher, it was absolutely amazing. Taking them out to farm festivals, getting these guys out there, experiencing what's there, and heading out into the garden. The Toughman competition, where all the young men like to test their manhood by eating hot peppers. It's fantastic. This is where they look tough. Going out, eating a strawberry from an actual field, all right, it just blows their mind. With farmers markets, last year there was a farmers market across the street from Fern Creek. I wrote a grant to have students work over the summer, and we had our own farmers market stand. Everything that we grew, they knocked it out. They were there at 6 o'clock every Saturday morning, even when I wasn't, and they absolutely killed it. You can see them selling some of the starts and some of the produce, and then you can also see one of my other students. We grew about 180 pounds of yellow squash, and we took it to the Fresh Stop and donated it. And he ended up hopping in the kitchen and working as a sous chef for the cook. This is the Fern Creek Garden group for this summer. So the farmers market dissolved, so now there's a one-stand farmers market every Saturday morning, and they sell the produce out of the garden, just kind of as a place.
What's going on now on Saturdays?
Saturdays 9 through 12, and then every Tuesday through Friday from 4 to 6 they're down there.
I did not know that.
Never seen the signs of it. We've all lived
Yeah.
in Fern Creek, so.
And it's tough. We try to put those signs out by the school, and then sometimes by Bardstown, and they blow over. And it's tough with just those guys without the infrastructure there. It'd be amazing if it was back up, and if you guys live down there, call up the community center and put pressure.
Do you set up in front? Where is their booth? Is it by the?
We
in the
put it
front or the
behind
back?
just so it's close to the school, just because also sometimes I'm there, sometimes I'm not.
By the gym?
In between the front of the school and the firehouse.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
firehouse, okay.
So we go to the fresh shops too, and help with breaking down vegetables and also cooking. So I still get the kids out there so they can see the community aspect of it.
We haven't had a session on Fresh Stops. Can you do a brief?
So a Fresh Stop is kind of a bi-weekly CSA model where it's started by this group called New Roots, run by Karen Moskowitz, and she goes around and helps the communities organize to where you buy a share every 2 weeks. They get the money up front and then can go buy wholesale prices from farmers. They bring in everything that they buy wholesale and then they split it up based on the number of shares that they have. So you end up getting a massive box of vegetables for an incredibly low price, and it doesn't take the massive financial dedication that a normal CSA model has.
Because the pricing is spread out over the life cycle of the season, you're only paying a little bit each week, and plus they're able to take use the EBT transactions as a way to pay for it. So it's a really great model. So we get more information about that if you want.
So here's students working. You can see our greenhouse in the background and our corn from last year. And I mean, learning how to use a shovel, learning how to use your hands. I mean, these are all these things that a lot of these students haven't done, that a lot of adults take for granted. Okay, well, you're going to know how to do that. A lot of them don't. And I mean, we pull in kids from all walks of life. I love the picture with the tutu and the boots.
Yeah, she is not dressed.
No, and I mean, when you tell them to dress for the garden, they don't know what that means.
She got her boots off.
I know, and she was better off than most of them. So, I mean, when we look at this, it's just amazing trying to bring in all these things. And, you know, I might go in saying, all right, I want to teach them about this, about food, and they're going to be coming in, and we're going to have 50 different lessons going on at once. Maybe it's how to use a shovel. This one's going to learn what a tomato plant looks like. This one's going to learn maybe I shouldn't wear flip-flops. So all over the place. These are two of my students I'm incredibly proud of. This student here is going for environmental studies at JCTC and working at UPS. So he is still kind of going on that line. He has a massive garden at home now. He was one of the guys that worked with me for the summer. And this is Edwin. He's over at the speed school at UofL. On his senior year, he wrote a $500 grant looking at the need for fresh fruit in the community, and we ended up putting in 25 fruit trees at the school.
Where at?
Right on Fern Creek campus. So within 2 years, we're going to have hundreds of pounds of fruit coming out
That's
of Fern
been
Creek.
the back by the parking lot.
Yeah, is it by the
Yep,
parking
so
lot?
all around that big parking lot,
Okay.
down, and then in that draw, we're going to try to add another
Perfect.
20 trees,
Great idea.
which is awesome. It's the largest orchard of any school in Jefferson County. And you know what? In 3 years, the problem they're going to have is too much fruit.
Yeah.
Which, you know, if I'm fishing for problems at public schools, that's
Yeah.
one I'll take, all right?
We could use it in the cafeteria
Yeah, and that's one of the goals.
and fresh fruit.
Yeah. So this is actually a picture of FoodWorks. So I had some of my students come in and just trying to take all of these different pieces and put them together and develop community. So we were cooking outside by the greenhouse, pulling the vegetables out, making 4 different cold salads, and then on a charcoal grill making flatbread behind the scenes. One of the other pieces of the food studies program we're trying to work there is we have a newcomers group, an ELL group, English language learners, and bringing these guys out in the garden, letting them express some of their connections, some of their knowledge. And it's amazing to put them in the teacher's seat where a lot of the times they're in a classroom where they feel frustrated because of the language barrier. And this is one of my favorite parts is I connected with the Lee family down in Fern Creek, and they taught us the traditional Lee family pho. And he was never allowed in the kitchen before because it was all just the women. They would always kick him out. And he said, well, I want to teach people about it. And he said, well, if it's for education. So the grandmother taught him the pho recipe. We went to the Vietnamese grocery, and the next thing you know, we had the traditional Lee family pho. And it was the first time I ever had a little girl come up to me and ask me for more tendon. Which, I mean, just blew my mind. It's like, I'm doing something right if that's happening. So, over the past 3 years, we've strived to build this program. Before we got there, it wasn't really there. It was about building community partners, collaborating with people, but also getting these students engaged and getting them passionate about something that wasn't there before. And through that passion, offering them opportunities in the rest of their lives. So I know I keep on getting time minders, and I went totally over what I was planning on. So